Welcome to the Your Money Hour podcast. I am your host, Dakota Grady, and today's guest is a friend of a friend. I've known Joshua Grady. He's an NFL agent, and I got introduced to him and his friend, Andrew Williamson. Say it slowly. Andrew is a former Indianapolis Colts player. He's a defensive back. Is that correct, Andrew?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's get started. Tell us about who you are and your experience about being in the league, and also talk about the money aspect. We're going to talk about all those things. So welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me, Dakota. I'm super honored that you have me on, and you just want to, hear my story and kind of my walk with, where God put me in terms of, my experiences with the NFL and just money in general. Would love to talk about my experience and kind of my relationship with, money and finances throughout, that specific time in my life.
Awesome. So how did you get in the NFL, and was it a goal of yours?
So honestly, like growing up, I've always kind of had like an attraction to football or just like a natural like draw toward it. But it wasn't necessarily something that I saw. Well, actually earlier on, like once I started playing it outside and, with friends, really took a liking to it. It was kind of like a natural ability. I was always kind of fast, pretty athletic. So I was like, okay, like I can get with this, It's really for me, like it was a way for me to find an identity. And kind of like get some attention, some affirmation in a sense, just because I was good at it. So I kind of ran with it. Grew up in a military background, so we moved around, every 2-3 years. But my dad went ahead and decided to retire in San Antonio, and then being in Texas, like, big in football. So that's where I kind of really began to get like kind of the trumps in the culture, and just really just excelled in it kind of naturally. And then, one door opened from the next. Got opportunity to play at Vanderbilt University, full ride scholarship. And it's, a blessing. Absolutely go to a good school, but also continue to play football, love the game, love the camaraderie around it, always being in, constant fellowship with other guys. It was just an awesome time. I got to play football, which was fun. Develop relationships with, close friends that I still have today. As you're saying, Joshua Grady, we're best friends now. But we got to know each other through the opportunity at Vanderbilt, which was awarded through football. The next level. So I was an undrafted free agent with the Colts. Came on in 2016, and ended up getting injured that first preseason. It was about like 6th or 7th day of camp. I went down, blew out my knee, ACL, LCL, a little partial MCL. It was pretty big, significant injury. So it was like a 10-month rehab, but they kept me around. I was very fortunate enough to do rehab there. Stay with the team. That was awesome. A great experience as well. So, being on IR, you do get, a pretty significant, salary base. And that was, that was not something. So I didn't necessarily grow up. I didn't feel like I grew up like in need. Being in the military, my dad, I feel like needs were kind of provided for. Just fortunate in that regard. But still, but never was exposed to that kind of money before. So like it was definitely a blessing. It was awesome. But I think going through that and looking back through the lens that I have now, I feel as if I didn't manage that money the best at all, especially not so much taking into account, the lifespan or the career span that one might have in the NFL. I think the average is like 2 or 3 years, if that. Turnover is just so high on the NFL roster, and like just a limited amount of positions is super competitive. So not having, taking that as weighty as I should regarding my finances. Looking back, I wish I would have been a lot more intentional in, setting up different financial vehicles, so that way, my assets would have continued to build more assets. But you know, I was at the same time going through that experience has brought me, to where I'm at now, and just kind of like afforded like an education and like, hey, like this is how you should manage your money, in the event when you begin to start building assets for yourself. So it was definitely a learning experience. Super grateful for the experience, and definitely grateful to be, on your podcast as well too, to kind of learn from you and just share, my testimony with that.
So, without being too specific, how much did you make during your tenure in the NFL?
Well, I mean, yeah, you can even look it up. I think the base for IR in 2016 and base for IR in 2016 was like 330K. But of course, like when you're up in that tax bracket, you get like that gets slashed off rip, and then you got agent fees as well too. So I mean, it's still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I think coming out of like that year, so I think like 2017, I was still spending some money. Of course, get a good amount of money like that. You're not as like prone to be like frugal with it, and just like, oh, okay, like it's a lot of money. Let me go ahead and buy some nice things. Like, I got a car. I'm a very giving person too. So like I was giving like, sisters, family members, some money here and there, friends, like, hey, let's go out. Like, I got it. So being, a little loose with it in that regard. But I think like it started 2018, I had, still was above like six figures in terms of like assets, just being able to hold from there. But man, I'll tell you what, man, life did hit. It was a learning experience all throughout 2018. I had ended up moving to Dallas and had my money kind of in, a little bit less stable vehicles. And it was I think God took me through that season just to grow in wisdom, grow in discernment. But like I said, I'm referring to, investing in stocks. That was one of my things that I took a drawing to. And I think a lot of that kind of stemmed back from, just some upbringing as well too, which we could probably get into a little bit as well, based off the questions, but I don't want to defer too much. I kind of want to stay on like the track that you want to be on.
Oh, no, that's fine. So, I mean, did you buy big ticket items, cars for your friends, or just mostly for you, or did you?
Yeah, so like car, like I bought myself a car. I was like, and it wasn't even a new car. It was like a 2015. I got it in 2017, but it was like a Nissan Murano, it was an SUV. I bought some Rams too, some nice little black 22s. I was like, okay, like I'm looking clean. But yeah, man, I was really just like kind of like spending like in terms of like big ticket items. I wasn't buying like big ticket stuff for like anybody else. Nah, like I wasn't doing that, but I was definitely being like pretty loose in the sense of like, hey, sisters, like I want to look out for my sister, send them a couple $100 here and there, close cousins, friends, just, hey, let's go out. Like I'll pick up the tab and stuff like that, but nothing like excessive. Like I wasn't like super excessive with that. Yeah.
So, do you think you had a vice for your spending at all, or was it mostly being generous?
Vice, man, that's good. That's a great question. Great question, Dakota. Yeah. So like, I actually did get involved with a little, like just a little gambling, like small like sports betting, like betting on like parlays and stuff with baseball, football as well too. So there was a good amount of money that was, ended up getting lost through that, which like that was a learning experience as well too. But yeah, growing up, I was always kind of like I was exposed to like lottery tickets, so you're kind of opened up to like that quick win, that quick hit. So there's just like okay, like let me try my luck, So yeah, that I think there was like a season. It was like a 2-3 month. I'd say about like a 6-month span, kind of betting on like, some games as well as, baseball and stuff too. But Yeah, it was learned. I don't do that anymore.
So at what point did you realize that you needed to stop with the gambling? At what point?
Yeah, so it was just one season for me. Like, praise God, like it was something that he was just, hey, stop doing that. It didn't take me, having to get beat over the head with it. So yeah, that was just like a short season for me. So it was probably something I just did for like maybe 6, 7 months. And like, I think IR too, you got kind of like a lot of like free time and isolation too. So it was kind of a way for me to, kind of fill that time up.
In terms of you being in the league and seeing other people, did you have to like were you comparing yourself in terms of income, things that they were having? Like, was that a challenge for you as well?
Yeah. So I don't know if that was like a huge challenge for me, but it's definitely something that you're aware of. Like, um, yeah, I mean, guys like they come in with nice things, they got nice cars, and you want to be able to like, just have some kind of, I guess, presence in that regard as well too. But like, I wasn't very flashy like growing up. That wasn't something my dad would buy stuff from like clothes from like Walmart or like the Base Exchange. Like he wasn't very flashy guy, so I think I like took after him in that regard. So yeah, thankful for him. For me, just kind of be able to identify with that and not really get caught up with like, hey, I need to be like seen in that regard.
So the injury,
Mhm.
it ended your dream of being in the NFL. Talk about that. How did you bounce back? And I mean, just how did you bounce back from that? Because I mean, guys, they build up so much time,
Mhm.
energy, effort to get to that point, and then an injury ends their career. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I don't, I don't know. I don't necessarily think like the injury like ended my career, but it definitely put things in perspective and kind of like stop the ball from rolling as quickly as it was. So I kind of really felt like I lost a whole lot of momentum that I had in regards to like pursuing football. Um, because it was just always something that like I took a natural liking to. Like I always enjoyed football because I was good at it. It was a kind of way to like have an identity. It was a way to receive affirmation, get attention from others. Um, and I don't know if I necessarily saw like football as like my like great big purpose in life. I say I really like coming to the faith within the last like 2 years. I got baptized. I was baptized as a baby, but I got rebaptized in terms of following Christ intentionally. Started 2019, and as I began to kind of like grow in a relationship with God, He's been kind of like putting certain things on my heart to that, playing football, I didn't necessarily see like a calling in football, if that makes sense. So I think that's probably why I was so easily to be kind of like led away from it. Because I think going into as I was like kind of like getting some traction coming out of college, like okay, like I actually can. I'm gonna be given an opportunity. I did well enough in college to be, given an opportunity to make the NFL team. So I was like, okay, doors open. I'm gonna walk through it. Um, I was like, yeah, let me just go ahead and try to play as long as I can. And I felt like I had, I had a bunch of momentum. I was feeling good. I was feeling like in the best shape of my life coming out of college. And really as like the preseason kicked off, I felt like I was like, in terms of like gauging myself with the other guys, I felt pretty good. I felt pretty confident. But once that injury happened, yeah, it really like the ball really like slowed down, or just like I just lost a whole bunch of momentum in terms of like hey, is this something I really want to do? And like I said, you have a lot of isolation whenever you're on IR, just kind of being retracted from the team, but just not like at the facility. Like kind of how it works. Like first like few months of rehab, you might go to the facility maybe like 1-2 hours out of the day, depending on what their rehabilitation process looks like. And then you're good for the rest of the day. And I wasn't going to the meetings or nothing like that until like we started back, in like OTAs in spring. So yeah, man, there was just a lot of time to myself and kind of like reflecting. I wasn't in like I felt like healthy community as well too. So like I know that played I know that played a factor in it as well. So yeah, man, I think I just kind of like fell away from it, kind of lost confidence in myself. And then like kind of when you get back, uh, you're off. Like I didn't feel the same. I mean, naturally, like when you have a significant injury like that, you do feel off a little bit. I mean, I felt like the rehabilitation process was awesome. It was great. Like I came back, but it just felt different. You know what I mean? I had a different. It's almost like it's like I was there, but I wasn't there. You know what I mean? And I think like when the preseason went by, I wasn't really making the plays I felt like I should made. I should have made. I got like real down and discouraged, and um, yeah, once I got let go, I was just like, dang, like, do I really want to do this? And then honestly, just being completely transparent, because coming out of that 2017, like I had some money, you know what I mean, like get let go from the team, but I had a whole year on IR. I was already investing a little money at the time, and I was in this one stop, Dakota. I was in this one stop. What was it called? I don't even know. I don't even know if I can like talk about it or whatever. I don't know any of the legalities behind it, but I was in this one stop, man, that like really like shot up, and I made a bunch of money off of it, dude. Like I made a bunch of money. I was just like, yo, like I could legit just do this for the rest of my life and not have to worry about like, waking up like doing like mad workouts or you know what I mean, like worried about like blowing out another knee or getting multiple concussions. You know what I mean? Because I think that begins to have an effect on your mental as well, just body preservation. But yeah, man, like I made a bunch of money on this one stock, and I was just like, yo, like I could just do this, but it was really just like kind of like a false hope, a false truth. And I was led astray in that because that ended up coming back to bite me in the butt, like on the latter part of 2018, lost a ton of money, bro. I lost a ton of money. Just kind of like with that mentality, like the quick hit, let me invest in like, stocks, which are not very sustainable assets in regard when they're just not managed well. That's my fault. So yeah, I take ownership of that.
So how have you had to bounce back and recover from coming from the NFL back to not being in the NFL?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Really just yeah, man. Like so, like once I stopped playing, I really did hit like it was pretty tough time for me. Just kind of figuring out, okay, like what's my purpose? Like, what kind of career path should I go down? It was just a lot, man. It was a lot of processing because you do something for so long in your life, and like you really do believe, like, hey, like you just naturally find identity in that. So when you no longer do it, it's just like, yo, like who am I? Who am I? So I think that's really when I had like my come to Christ moment or come to Christ season, was just like, hey, no, like you're my son, like I love you. It don't matter like what you're doing, like there's purpose in exactly where you're at. So I ended up getting a job at Honda Finance latter part of 2018. I was doing like insurance. I tried to do insurance for a little bit that summer of 2018. But I just really didn't have the confidence to do door-to-door sales or business-to-business sales. I wasn't at that moment in my life where I just could do that. I really struggled. I struggled highly in that. So I went ahead and just got a job. It's like, okay, let me just work. Let me get some work experience. Let me, talk with people more. Let me learn how to communicate with people. So I did that. I worked at Honda Finance for like 15 months. And so this was like, I decided like at that time, God was working on my heart, doing some things. And, I felt like a calling away I was being led away. He's like, go ahead and, not do that anymore. But it's crazy because I wasn't necessarily like being led to something specific. Well, yeah, there was some stuff going on in terms of like me potentially like doing some stuff with Grady, getting back in the ball and whatnot. Which like, yeah, man, there's just been a lot of like trying to figure out what exactly my role is. But like where I'm at right now, just kind of like working, at this mentorship deal. It's a nonprofit organization called Forerunner Mentoring, and kind of it's after school program for like lower privileged kids in this Lake Highlands area of Dallas. And it's like Christian based, but it's just a space where like kids can come in. They don't necessarily have a father figure, and get built up, encouraged. And it's a program that like helps them with like homework literacy. It's just a healthy environment for them to like kind of grow and as like young men, which that has been a blessing. That's been really cool. that's something that I never really saw myself doing the year before. So that's how I know, like, that's something that God just put in my heart, like, this season. So I went ahead and walked when that door opened, just because, when I had left my job back in March, I went through a season, like, kind of doing Uber Eats, trying to figure out, doing the whole scouting academy thing with Grady too. But yeah, I was just really trying to figure out. So that's where I'm at right now. Like I said, working at Chick-fil-A, and as well as working at this Forerunner mentoring. We'll see what God does with it, man. Like, he's always up to something. I have, like, no faith and belief in that. But definitely, yeah, just encouraged by the progress more than anything. Feel like I'm definitely out of that, kind of like that shadow of, like, hey, like, you're no longer playing football anymore. Like, who are you? And it's just like, no, I'm just walking in light of, where am I exactly right now. So
it sounds like you found some hope, and the hope is Jesus.
Amen, brother.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we got about 4 minutes. And have you thought about being like an agent with Joshua Grady, joining GSA or starting your own training camp? Because there are many opportunities for you as a previous player. You got knowledge in your head that others don't have, right? So thought about some things like that?
Yeah, and I definitely have thought about a lot of stuff. And that's, so, like, once I started, like, doing some things with Grady regarding, scouting, I'm looking at some of the guys that he had on his list. There was a strong, like, liking to that. And, I think that's what kind of drew me away from, like, my previous job. And, I felt like there was, like, a calling toward it, in a sense, or being a leading toward it. And, as I was kind of going through, like, that scouting academy I had went through with, like, Dan Hatman had put it on, with, I think, Louis Riddick, and there's another guy, I forget his name, but they put on an awesome online academy, made, like, a bunch of videos available, kind of equip you with a process and how to scout, best practices and whatnot. But it really just came down to, like, repetition. And I struggled through it. Like, I really did. I really struggled to just, like, grind out the film. So that's why I was just like, okay, like, I felt like, if this was, like, my calling, it'd be a little bit, I'm not saying it wouldn't be hard, but, I feel like I'd be feeling like I'd be walking a little bit more purpose. But I mean, maybe there's just sermon in that. Maybe there's a lack of wisdom in that. I don't know. But I definitely did enjoy, like, watching the guys, like, with Grady, and, like, kind of helping them out in a sense. And that's why, like, I kind of, like, thought about doing coaching out here. But with COVID going on, so I explored that. Being in Texas, you gotta be certified as a teacher. So I kind of, like, looked into that, and with COVID and everything happening right now, it wasn't something I was confident just, like, taking up an alternative teaching program, just because you'd have to, feel that, like, go through that. It's like a 2-3 month process, study for a couple of exams. So I didn't want to take that up in that specific season of my life right now. So also room with 2 other guys, and we wanted to be very intentional about, like, rooming together and, like, learning, what it's like to live out, like, healthy community. So we're all, like, growing in communication with one another, just trying to build, like, a foundation of, what's it look like to be, like, a man pursuing God's heart, and, walking in light of that, like, in this world. So, it's definitely been like, a growing process. And so I have thought about doing some stuff back with football, and just, like, training and whatnot too, but haven't, like, stepped fully into that. But like I said, like, I had went ahead and took up, like, the 2 positions where I'm at now. And I'm not Forerunner for at least until May. So, I'm committed there. And then, so, we'll see, what happens from that point on.
Cool. Well, any final thought before we close?
No, man, what do you think? Did I answer all your questions, or was there anything else that you were trying to get out of the conversation?
I just wanted to share your story. I mean, I'm sure there's more. Maybe we can do another segment, but just if you could leave everyone with one thing of wisdom about your experience, whether with money, faith, your career as an NFL player, what would it be?
I'd say definitely be as intentional as the grace and wisdom imparted to you. But just know that like you don't have to have it all figured out, you know. Take off that yoke, that burden of like, hey, I have to know exactly, what I'm doing. Just know God's got a plan for you, and He's going to use you exactly where you're at.
Awesome.
And He
So
knows
how
where
can
you're
people
going.
connect with you online on social media?
Man, honestly, like I'm not the best at social media. I got my own thoughts regarding that, but it is a platform. It is a platform that, you can use. I'd say be intentional about it. But at the same time, like it's something to be, I guess, enjoyed too, you know? But yeah, I'm on Instagram at andthowil, ANDTHOWIL. And I don't think I'm on Twitter. I have Facebook, but I'm not really active on that. So yeah,
Cool,
Instagram's
cool.
all I got.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time, Andrew. This is the Your Money Hour podcast. Connect with Andrew on Instagram one more time.
Andthowil, ANDTHOWIL. And I appreciate you, Dakota, for having me on, bro. Man, I think what you're doing is awesome. You have a platform and you're using it to shine light and bring about other people's experiences that other people I'm sure could relate to. So thank you for being a light, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining me.
All right, boss.
Take care.